Put it on the.
David Solomon, because we had like 6 votes. There's some. You see first?
Share myself on YouTube.
I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, June 17th, 2025 Island City Council meeting to order. Janice, could you please call roll?
Councilmember Atlas.
Here.
Councilmember LeFeya. Here. Councilmember Mitchell,
Here.
Vice Mayor Maida,
Here.
and Mayor Rhodes.
Here. We have no closed session. Will you join me for pledge allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a approved?
Our credit rating even further, and the ratings agencies like to see rates that are already approved. The consultant is working on the model that underlies the rates. They're working with our staff, but we do expect to have board meetings and probably a special workshop on the rates in August and September, with an eye to getting a Prop 218 notice out in about October. So I wanted you and your citizens who are our retail customers to know about that so that they can engage in the rate study as it goes along if they so choose. The board obviously will make, important decisions when it makes when it adopts rates in December. And I can't predict what they're going to say exactly, but I do know that for planning purposes, ever since the 2021 rate approval, the board has said that they anticipate future rate increases being closer to inflationary increases, not the dramatic changes that we saw before. And our long-range financial plan has assumptions in it about like inflation plus 1% as a way of trying to make sure that we can meet our debt coverage ratios for the financing that we're doing for projects going forward. So both because the capital projects continue to be important to the city anyway and its residents, and also because they continue to be the major driver of our rates, And also because from what I've heard, there seems to be some continuing confusion about what AWA's projects are. I'm going to summarize some of that today really briefly for you. As you know, our water supply for the city comes from the McKellamny River. It comes through the Amador transmission pipeline to the Tanner plant where our headquarters is, and then down the Ione transmission line to our treatment plant here in Ione. The water is filtered and disinfected. The filters have to be backwashed periodically to remove the solids that are collected out of the water. Our source water is quite good and clean coming from the McKellamny River, but there are sources of carbon in it that need to be removed. And because we filter the water, we have to backwash the filters periodically. The backwash water is considered wastewater. It's not municipal wastewater. It's not like domestic sewage, but it is considered wastewater from a regulatory perspective. Currently, we produce about 75,000 gallons a day of backwash water. We recycle that water and about 90% of it goes back into the plant. And we have about 7,500 gallons per day that we send to your sewer system. And we pay you to take that and treat it. And I know that your sewer system is constrained and we have some particular problems where we tie into the system because that backwash water has a lot of solids in it at that point and doesn't flow through your system very well. So that's been something we've been trying to address. But in the meantime, the limitations of being able to discharge that backwater are one of the bottlenecks that keeps us from expanding the treatment plant. And as you know, we have a serious problem with treatment plant capacity to serve Ione. The treatment plant needs to be expanded. Expanding the capacity of the treatment plant necessarily means that we will produce more backwash water. We can't just continue to try to put it into your wastewater system because we don't have the capacity to do that. So we originally planned to construct backwash drying beds out near where our reservoir site is. The plan was that in the long range, we would probably build a new plant out there. We already own land, so we were going to build our backwash facilities out there. In the meantime, the timeline for when we would need to build a new treatment plant is very uncertain. And it's also quite uncertain whether we would ever have enough money to do that. So we're working on expanding the plant at its current site. And then that'll buy us at least enough years to reevaluate what our long range plan is. In the meantime, we would be trucking our backwash water every day to the drying beds. That was not my favorite solution. It was expensive both to construct and to operate with trucking and traffic and air quality and all of that. So we reached a different solution. We reached an agreement with US Mine to take the backwash water, and we've agreed that we will construct a pipeline to the US Mine property to do that. That way, the backwash water will be 100% beneficially reused. None of it will go to the sewer. The agreement that we have with US Mine is not a service agreement. They've agreed to take our wastewater to dispose of it so that we don't have to. And we've agreed to provide that to them as we produce it. There's no set amount. There's no guarantee of how much we produce. They don't pay for it on delivery. It's just that we send them what we produce and they take care of it for us so we don't have to dispose of it. The avoided capital cost with this solution is about half. It's about $5 million. That's a savings for your ratepayers, our ratepayers, your citizens. And the fact that there's no trucking involved down the road is, I think, by far both environmentally and financially superior alternative. So further savings for the ratepayers. This question about the backwash handling is part of the suite of projects that are in design for to improve the plant capacity at the Ione treatment plant. We're at about 75% design on two projects. One which will improve the treatment plant itself. In that site, it'll improve the capacity of the plant. It'll improve the accessibility and the security of the plant. And that project is anticipated to cost just under $20 million, $19.89 million. We've already spent about $813,000, and the budget that my board approved last week for fiscal year 26 forecasts us spending $9.5 million on that project. The backwash handling component is now estimated to cost $5.4 million. It was 11 million at the previous site. We've spent about, well, a little bit under $350,000 on that so far on design work. And we are forecasting in this next fiscal year that we'll be spending over $2.5 million on the construction of the project. In addition to that, we have on our capital project list replacement of pipelines in Arroyo Seco and Amador Street, leaking old pipes. The pipeline replacement cost is anticipated to be $1,262,000, and we're forecasting to spend $832,000 of operating funds on that this year. In addition, further out, we have, but not too much further out, we have an issue that we need to address with the wildflower tank to do corrosion control improvements there that is estimated to cost $3.1 million. And we're anticipating spending $300,000 this year on the planning for that. So these are all investments in our capital program that are benefiting Ione. We have other projects that are in the Tanner service area and other projects up country. We're in the process right now through bonds we've already issued and bonds that we expect to issue in the spring, and an application that we're in the process with the federal government for a low interest federal loan. We're financing $70 million of projects to try to get our treatment plants and our system up to where they can provide reliable service to existing customers. It's been a long time coming, but that's what we're trying to do now. In addition to that, we did receive a grant from the Department of Water Resources specifically to work on water conservation projects as a way of facilitating our ability to enter into an agreement with the state as part of the Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan, or the alternative to the regulatory plan, what the state calls the Healthy Rivers and Landscape Program. The agreement that's underway with that would have us required to provide 2,000 acre feet and additional flows to the Delta during dry years. So to facilitate that happening, the state has given us some money that we can use for water conservation. We have focused the water conservation efforts on the Ione treatment plant service area first. And as a part of that, we've entered into an agreement with the city, as you know, for Howard Park improvements to conserve water there for up to $917,000. We also have engaged consultants to look for leaks, pipe leaks. They do acoustic detection for pipe leaks. We've got a construction manager on board and are geared up to start issuing invitations for bids to do pipe replacement projects in response to that this fiscal year. We expect to spend about $2.5 million on projects in response to that leak detection this fiscal year. So this is a big deal for us. With that being said, I wanted you and your public to appreciate the work that we're trying to do on behalf of the city and the rest of our service area as well, but in particular Ione, because the treatment plant has created an emergency condition because of its lack of capacity, and we want to remedy that as quickly as we can. We do provide wastewater service in many places in the county, but we don't have anything to do with the city's wastewater service other than being a customer of it. The city has its own wastewater facilities, and you have many agreements, I know. We have inherited some of the county service areas that used to have wastewater service, like the Martell area. And in that capacity, we operate a collection system that discharges to Sutter Creek. But we are not members of ARSA, and we're not involved in any of your other wastewater issues down here. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Larry. Any questions from council?
How much of your revenue comes from Ione?
I don't have the number for that off the top of my head.
Okay. Do you charge other counties the same per building, per household? I know it's up. When I moved here in 2019, I think my water connection fee was like $8,900.
Mhm.
It's now $27,000.
Mhm.
Do you charge that hookup fee to all of the other builds?
Yes.
In Jackson,
and-
Sutter Creek, everybody pays the same.
No, not everybody. all our retail customers have the same water capacity fee that they pay. And then we have a schedule of wholesale capacity fees. So customers who are connecting in Jackson, Dry Town, Plymouth, Mace Meadows Upcountry, Pine Grove Community Service District, they pay a wholesale capacity fee, which is about 16,000. When I got here in 2020, the capacity fees were 12,000, and they approximately doubled after we did a capacity fee study in 2021. The major driver for that was the capital improvements program that we had developed that figures in. It's one of the factors that goes into calculating capacity fees.
Do you ever anticipate that rate stopping at some point?
Public water systems always have capacity fees or connection fees, whatever they call them.
Maybe Mr. Thomas can answer for you. He seems to be
That's a big.
shaking.
Water systems always charge capacity fees because it is first and foremost a method for making sure that new customers buy into the existing system that the existing customers have been paying for years with their rates. Sometimes the capacity fees are also calculated based on incremental capital improvements. We use the next 5 years of our CIP as a factor in calculating the fee. So it will never go away. But we are, as a part of our rate study this summer, our consultant is recalculating water and wastewater capacity fees. So we'll have new numbers. I have no idea which direction they'll go. It's a mathematical formula that they use.
No, I can't imagine they'd ever go away. You're always going to pay for your water hookup.
Mm.
I'm just wondering if at some point we would ever stop having
Yeah.
300% increases.
Well,
I mean,
as I said, the fees are calculated with a certain method that is, we're required by the statutes for what we can charge for fees and how the methodology works. In 16, 17, the fees were recalculated and went down significantly. So that happens. But I think it's largely a function of the capital program at the time.
I understand what you're saying. We pay for the bonds eventually through rate increases. Our new home building, they pay. I just wonder at some point, are we ever going to hit a plateau where we stop increasing rates? Maybe we can't build anymore and we have enough capacity to handle everything. I don't know, but at some point, somebody's got to look at this and think.
The major drivers for our rates, aside from the capital program, are electricity, chemical costs, and fuel costs. And then, of course, because we have a workforce, the workforce at least gets COLAs, so that's always going up. But the big drivers for us are electricity, fuel, and chemical costs, which have increased significantly in the last 5 years. So when people tell me that, they don't understand why we're raising rates because they're also having to pay for gasoline and electricity bill went up. Moving here in 2020, I was stunned by the PG&E bills. So I understand that, but we have those same cost drivers because we use a lot of electricity. So it's an interesting question. I don't know if the rates will ever plateau, but as long as we have inflation, they shouldn't, because that's how we got into this situation that we're in now, where we've let the infrastructure go to the point of emergency instead of keeping up with it.
I understand why they go up. It's just at some point, people are not going to be able to pay these prices.
We are very concerned about the affordability of our service. My board has for several years been a strong proponent within the statewide association of water agencies for the development of a workable low-income water rate assistance program, which we don't have the ability to do because of the constraints that Prop 218 puts on how we charge people. We can't charge rates that we use to subsidize particular customers. So we're pretty constrained, but we've tried to work with other agencies and with other NGOs to come up with ideas for how the state could run a low-income water rate assistance program. We were really close this year, I think, but there were two bills pending. One was held on suspense in the assembly and is dead, and one got gutted by the author and became nothing. So,
Yeah, I saw.
but we'll keep working on that.
That was my only question.
Any other questions from council?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you,
McKinney, thank you so much.
Any public comment on that?
Keeps referring to them as we.
Can you go to the podium?
I'm sorry, Dolores Lur again. I'm sorry, I got in here after he started speaking and he kept referring to we. I just wondered who we were.
Amateur Water Agency.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mitzi Windley, he's talking about US Mines taking the water and it'll be less expensive for Ione. Does that easement that everybody's up in arms, it goes into that, right? The easement? The water easement? Fine.
So along the easement, along the alignment of the pipeline that we're planning to construct, there are parts of it where we already have easements, but there are parts that we don't. And so we need to clean that up and make sure that we have the proper real property interest to put a pipeline that's publicly owned by the water agency in there. This is a routine matter that happens between public agencies all the time. I think that the normal practice is that we pay fair market value for the easements. And that's what we're planning to do this time.
Who are you negotiating with at the time?
I've had discussions with the city manager about it, but we're not actively negotiating it right now, but it will come up sometime in the next year.
Okay.
Any other public comment?
Hello, Marcia Edick. Thank you for still being here because I'm trying to understand all of this. This new easement, who specifically besides US Mine does it benefit?
Well,
We can share.
yeah, the easement benefits, since it facilitates having this project of being able to have this backwash pipeline, it benefits everybody that benefits from the agency not having to pay another $5 million for a more expensive project. So that it benefits all the ratepayers because it's a much less expensive alternative for us to dispose of our backwash water than what we had otherwise planned to do.
But the biggest entity or the one who benefits the most is US Mine, who's going to get free water. Is that right?
No, I think, I think that the agency and its customers benefit more.
Okay,
I mean.
so this will hopefully guarantee a lower increase in our rates come.
It takes $5 million out of our capital improvements program that
It's
we won't have to spend. So that goes into the math for how we calculate our revenue needs and what the rates need to be.
Okay. And again, I'm new at learning all of this stuff. So, without this new easement, things can't happen because I understand there is an easement there, and pipes or whatever you call it that could be repaired, which would accommodate the transport of water from AWA to US Mine, but that would cost US Mine money. So we have to add in a new pipe, or am I off base?
I'm not sure what you're talking about with an existing line that would need repair. Our practice would be, if we're going to use this line, it's a permanent facility that we would construct ourselves and we would own and operate.
A new one.
Yes.
Okay.
And there are places along that alignment where we already own easements, but we don't have all of the alignment covered. I mean, we've been talking to the city about acquiring an easement that runs along the edge of Howard Park. Because that seems like a really logical place to put it. Often we put these pipelines in the roadways because there are public utility easements that exist in the roadway. Then we have to dig up the road and then repave it when we're done, and it adds to the cost and it disrupts traffic. So that's why we're looking along the edge of the park, the very edge of the park.
How long have these discussions been going on in regard to the easement, this new easement?
Since March, it came up.
Hmm.
Okay. All right.
You got 1 minute.
Okay. Last comment is I presume that there will be something presented to city council to approve or disapprove of the easement. Is that correct? Or I don't know who I direct that question to.
I think that's a question for the city, and I assume it probably requires either city action or the city has delegated authority to do it. But I'll just reiterate, this is a very routine matter between public agencies.
Okay, but it still has to be decided, I guess, in a meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and I can presume then that likely Mayor Rhodes would recuse himself from that vote? I mean, if it directs a benefit to his employer?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, all right. Sorry if my questions sound confusing.
It's okay, and I can talk to you afterwards.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Layman's terms, please. Thank you.
Sure.
Arlene Dutchke, 9835 Mile Drive. I just like to say, I don't understand this last with US Mines. You know, one of the things that is really concerning to me is the cost. I went to the meeting before, it was 20 million. Now we've added another 2.2 million. That's as far as what I recall. And so in order to save $5 million, I would consider US Mines doing us a favor. And I would think that most people in this room, if it means that you're not going to pay as much and that the city won't have to finance as much, I consider that a favor. And I consider that good business on both sides.
I really think it's sad when there's a couple of citizens, councilmen on here that are fighting US Mine when one of the biggest employer here. And if you treat them right, they'll probably do a lot of stuff for this city. And here you guys are fighting them. I just can't believe this. And even though my son works for them, they spend a lot of money in the city. Ace Hardware, take an example there. They're there almost every day. Okay, and you guys want to charge them for something? As far as I know about water, about the easements, if they wanted, they could run it up to the old pipeline, up highway, and they got the easement, and drop it down on the old easement across Howard Park, and you guys wouldn't have nothing to say about it anyway. Might cost us, and it's going to cost us people that pay the water bird. You just bitching about how much it's going to cost them. They'd up their rates to pay for this. You were just complaining about it. So this is crazy. I mean, they're trying to save us money. Both of you people. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Mr. McKinney? Oh, go ahead, Larry.
You're gonna open that up to regular public comment, or are you still stuck on that subject of which I know nothing about?
Oh, that's right. We didn't have public comment.
Go ahead.
We're still on this.
Yeah. We're on regular AWA. So.
I might also add that when they do the numbers and they crunch all the numbers on this, it's gonna be very obvious where the water should go and everything else. It's gonna be a benefit to the city. They're gonna have lower costs on the plant outside. This has been factored in and talked about for years. I used to work at Owens, Illinois. It's US Mine now, I understand. And the water is a water that you can't use just anywhere. So when I was on city council AWA was backflush and they backflushed so much that the water backed up into the toilets at the elementary school. Good thing it was in the summer when the water needs were higher. So we wanted them out of the sewer plant way back when I was on council. So I think the numbers will weigh out and factor in, so everybody will have a fresh look at it. Let's go see what happens then.
Thank you, Gary.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Brady Bartow. I'm with the ownership and management at US Mine. Obviously, or I think a lot of people probably already know, but we've got over 100 employees here just outside of town. The mine site's been operational since the 1950s, and we've been proud to support Howard Park and a number of other aspects of the community on a regular basis, and look forward to doing more so in the future. A little bit, we sell a lot of products, to local industry like Gallo, where we sell glass sand for their bottling manufacturing, and just down the road to SGI, where we're increasing our contract with them on getting them kale and clay at reasonable prices, cheaper than they get it from the East Coast. We've had a real positive relationship with the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board. And also I've gotten to know AWA a little bit in the last couple of months. From a kind of a general perspective, I've really only been active on site since about January, although I've been involved with the mine for years. But as far as daily management, that's where I've been since January. This issue came up with AWA, where AWA came to us and they said, we want to get rid of our backflush water. It's causing an issue where we can't build new building permits in the city because we're sending too much water to the sewage treatment. I'd be totally honest with you. We don't buy water for anything other than, our office. It's essentially our water use it's all essentially residential and commercial. We don't use any industrial water as it stands. And we don't discharge any water. We're a closed loop operation, which is good for the environment. And just, it's a good operation since we don't have the expenses of buying the water. This project is something that costs us money. It took, frankly, a lot of time for Larry to convince me to agree to take the water, because we have reasonable infrastructure costs internally. It's being delivered to the outside of our property, but where we need it in the property is not where it's being delivered. I tried to get it delivered closer, and where we ended up with the negotiations was he's basically going to the closest spot near Howard Park. We're taking it from there. We're spending the money. We're building the pipes inside, and we are obligated to take the water. If we run out of space for that water, it's on us, and we're not guaranteed water. There could be a year where we don't get a drop of it, but obviously we see some economic advantage in the sense that it has the potential for operational advantages. But at a fundamental level, this is not a moneymaker for us. I kind of felt my arm twisted on this one, to be clear, but we were concerned, and frankly, that it was an opportunity to help the city. I'm not totally clear as to where the misunderstanding is. I don't follow wherever these communications are happening. I've heard a little bit about it from our employees who are residents here in town. We've got a lot of residents here in town. I'm here, I'm listening, I'm hearing a bunch of stuff I hadn't heard before. I just kind of knew the operational side with Larry. So I'm not necessarily here to answer the questions, because I don't have all the questions to answer, other than kind of where I'm at, but I'm just down the road if anybody ever needs me. Pretty much Monday through Friday. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Brady. Any other public comment? You want to Zoom, Chief?
No.
Nope. All right, we'll close public comment.
How many times?
Were you going to do the public comment
Okay.
on other items
Yes.
after that?
Yes,
Thank you.
I'm opening that up and you may speak, Mr. Thomas.
Gary Thomas here on a more friendly matter. This weekend, we're having a car show. We've got about 130 cars. We hope everybody comes out and has fun. I personally called Channel 3 and asked them for 78 to 82 degree weather. That's a lie. And it's going to be breezy, so we're going to have good weather. We're going to have a good turnout. We're going to have some good fun. Thank you for the Ione Police Department for working with them and so forth and making sure our bases are covered. Ione Fire Department. The police department did kind of snub us, though. I got a complaint. They'd rather run off and chase crazy naked women instead of meet with us today, but we'll overlook that. But anyway, car show this weekend, a lot of fun, 130 cars so far. We're expecting 150 cars in these 2 blocks. And be there, be square, have fun.
Thank you, Gary.
Larry Rhodes, I'd like to bring up the subject you guys, 2 of you brought up about sending the, geez, can't think what call it, the state about the, ARSA line, not ARSA, but the, Woodward Bottom line on Brickyard Road. You guys want to have an investigation, and I kind of wish you would, Dominic, and you look into having the Attorney General look at it, because I'd love to see him investigate Woodward Bottom, $22.5 million. And there's no records of it, the city, the county, there's nothing about it. I'd really love to have them investigate that. Yeah, we'll see who comes out on this, huh? $22.5 million, no paperwork on it, 0. Yeah, I'd love you to investigate it. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Items not on the agenda?
My first subject relates to the last meeting and the train depot park project. And I want to talk about some of the comments that were made during the discussion at that last meeting, because I think they're worth repeating. I actually went back and listened to the video again because I wanted to capture the timestamps and get some accurate quotes as accurately as possible. But first of all, I want to mention that I misunderstood where the money was coming from, and when I'm wrong, I admit it. I mistakenly believed it would be another expense borne by the city. But what I discovered, and this was thanks to Mr. Epperson, because he provided additional context, that it was residual money. It was about $80,000 or something like that. And it was left over, and we had an opportunity to use it. So I just wanted to say that I felt it was important to clarify that there was a misunderstanding on my part. I'm readily admitting it and wanting to clarify what I said at the previous meeting. So on that same subject, I noted that it seemed like the train depot park project was kind of being pushed through, well, it was, without proper procedures being followed. And specifically, I recall Mr. Atlan mentioning the procedures that need to be followed, a site map and the planning commission and community outreach. And several people called in and, they chimed in as well on the procedures that need to be followed. What disturbed me was the fact that the city manager mentioned, and this is pretty much a quote, "Sounds good in theory, but sometimes things happen out of order. We had to act quickly. We had to make a decision on where to spend this money. My job is to cut through wasted government time to get things done for the public. And we're more concerned with policy and bureaucracy." Well, we have to recognize this is government, and there is nothing in government that is easy, but there are policies and procedures that have to be followed. And those are points well taken by the people who called in and by Mr. Atlan. And I think you too, Allison, said something, I can't remember. Equally concerning was the mayor mentioned, we don't need to listen to rules and regulations. I don't really get that. And then the most disturbing comment, in my opinion, was also from the mayor at the 2-hour, 53-minute mark. The problem is you people move here and ruin our damn town is the damn
You
problem.
got 1 minute.
You know, that was inappropriate. That was totally uncalled for. It's insulting. I think everybody in this room can agree that the volunteers are very much appreciated, those who dedicate their time and energy to these projects. But that doesn't mean that we are naysayers, as we were called by the city manager. We want the rules and the policies and the municipal code followed. And I don't think that's too much to ask. I'm all for making improvements. But again, this is the government process, and we have to follow the rules, like it or not. And I don't expect to hear those kinds of comments. We shouldn't expect to hear those kinds of comments from our elected officials. And I didn't get to finish the rest, but that's fine.
Any other public comment? Anyone on Zoom, Chief?
No.
All right, we'll close public comment. Moving on to the consent calendar. Can I get an approval for the consent calendar?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
I second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Let's have it. All right,
Figured I'd give you a break, Andrea.
we have a public hearing. Consideration adoption of sewer rate study and increase to sewer rates, including the following: public hearing to consider the proposed rate increase and protests received and declare results of the protest proceedings, and adoption of resolution 2025-18, accepting and closing the Proposition 218 notification and protest process and adopting the rate increase. Go ahead.
I didn't know if staff was going to make any opening comments. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Chris Fisher with Wildan Financial Services, and it's a privilege to be here again with you this evening. I was here about 2 months ago to present the results of the rate study and ask for the setting of this public hearing. So we're going to go through those same results, the same information again this evening. There's really no difference in the analysis of the numbers. It's just going through it again for the folks that are here this evening and for your benefit as well. So first slide, please. Or do I have it? No, thank you. So when we set out on this process, probably about a year ago, we identified with staff a number of objectives and goals for the study. First and foremost, to evaluate the current financial condition of the sewer utility, and then on that basis, develop a 5-year financial plan to ensure that there is adequate funding to provide for the current costs as well as the future costs of maintenance and operations, debt service coverage. Also wanted to ensure that there was funding included for capital project needs. And these are projects called out in the city's capital improvement plan, which really goes back even one step to master plan efforts that the city goes through. That's a process where they hire a consultant to come in and do assessment of the system, identify any deficiencies or things that need to be replaced or upgraded, rehabilitated. And those recommendations then make their way into the city's capital plan. So that's another key item within the study that we wanted to ensure funding for. We also want to maintain adequate reserves. The city's policies outline some guidelines for maintaining a certain level of operating funds as well as capital funds. And we wanted to make sure that we were able to address those. And we want to ultimately provide recommendations that secure the funding necessary to accomplish all these things, to maintain the stability of sewer operations, to be able to provide customer service uninterrupted as it has been for the next 5 years. And then ultimately, any rates and recommendations have to be equitable and based on the cost of providing service. And those rates and the process also have to be in compliance with California Proposition 218. So Proposition 218 has a very specific process for adopting new utility rates. That's water, sewer, solid waste rates, where we conduct a public hearing and there's an opportunity for folks to submit written protests. So some key factors that really drove the analysis
And many of these were touched on by the gentleman from Amador County Water or Amador Water Agency. The costs, like many of the costs that we experience, are going up. The cost of operating equipment, utilities, power, those types of things, personnel related costs. We need to ensure that the city is able to maintain its requirement for debt service coverage related to the iBank loan. And I'll explain a little bit more about what that means here in a couple slides. And then again, there's funding for the sewer capital projects that are identified in the capital improvement plan. And really, most importantly, probably the biggest factor is the last time rates were adjusted was 20 years ago. So as those rising costs have continued over that period, the rates have remained the same since 2004. So that was definitely a key factor. Good, thank you. So really to complete a rate structure, there's kind of three major questions that we're asking or answering, I should say, is how much revenue do we need? Who's incurring the cost, meaning which customers, and what do the rates ultimately need to be in order to generate the revenue that's needed? So to figure out how much revenues we need, we conduct what's called a revenue sufficiency analysis, and that serves as the basis for our financial plan and our 5-year projections. To figure out who's incurring the cost, we analyze customer data and complete a cost of service analysis to ensure that we're able to sign out those costs to customers to ensure that they pay rates that are equitable based on their impact on the system. And then ultimately that analysis feeds into what the rates need to be. And those rates are assigned based on the usage and the benefit from that cost of service analysis. So the first step was to kind of go through a process of figuring out, based on the city's current rates, how much revenue can be generated, and does that revenue meet the needs projected over the next 5 years? And so the series of blue boxes at the top kind of outlines a process we go through where we gather a bunch of historical data from the city, analyze it to look at which customers are using the service and in what volumes. We reconcile that customer billing data and reproduce the bills over the previous 3 years to make sure they match up to the audited financials so that we can be sure that customer data is accurate. And then we compare that revenue that we can generate on those existing rates to the amount of revenue that's required based on the 5 years projections. And once again, that's the operating and maintenance cost, the debt service payments and the debt service coverage, cost of capital projects, and the funding of reserves. So based on that analysis, we developed what we call kind of a status quo or do nothing projection. So there's 3 boxes here. The box at the top compares revenues to costs or expenditures over the next 5 years. So starting with fiscal 2026 out to fiscal 2030. So you see the dark blue bars indicating revenues compared to the light blue bars indicating expenditures. And you see in all of the 5 years, the revenues are not enough to meet the expenditures. And so you see that solid black line there, which is the net result, is less than 0, meaning it's negative net result, and growing slightly more negative until the 3rd year. Then it takes a big dip down in the 4th year. And remains there through the rest of the projection. On the bottom left side, you see an indicator of the number of days cash in reserve. So what that means is that an industry best practice in the city's policies, we try to maintain 270 days or 9 months worth of cash in reserve, meaning 270 days worth of your daily operating costs. So you see that's there in the 1st year, but by the 2nd year, I'm sorry, it's 180 days. It was 270 in the 1st, but it went down to 180 in the 2nd, which is the target, which is 6 months. And then by the 3rd year, it's almost exhausted. And by the 4th year, it's beyond exhausted. It's in deficit. In the 5th year, even further into deficit. So, within 3 years, all of the city's excess cash or reserve cash would be exhausted with no changes. And then finally, on the bottom right is a graph indicating debt service coverage. So the city has an iBank loan. The payment for that is about $145,000 a year. And part of the commitment or the covenant involved with that loan requires the city to maintain $1.10 worth of net revenue for every $1 of debt service they have to pay. So it's a measure of coverage and financial health for the city. And right now, that requirement's not being met, and it gets further away from being met as we go through the 5 years. So that's the if we do nothing or the status quo scenario, which is what we wanted to address with the recommendations in the process. So I mentioned the capital plan, and so wanted to show a quick list of the capital projects that are part of the city's 5-year plan coming up. So you see those projects divided out into 3 main categories. There's the wastewater treatment plant itself, the Castle Oaks Reclamation Facility, and then the collection system, which is your existing pipelines and lift stations and manholes and all of the other pipelines and things that get wastewater from residents and businesses to the wastewater treatment facilities. And so it's a total of about almost $23 million over the next 5 years. About $6.5 million of that is just upgrading and rehabilitating aging pipelines, much like just about every utility through the state that we've worked with. Pipelines have been in the ground for many years, and those do deteriorate over time. And part of that master planning, capital plan development process is going out, looking at pipelines and figuring out which ones need to be repaired and upgraded to make sure there's the likelihood of any sort of failure is reduced. So that's a snapshot of the capital plan. And then based on all of the analysis and the development of the revenue requirements, these are the recommended rates for the next 5 years. And the rates are consistent with the structure that the city has used previously. So we're not, creating new categories or changing anything like that. It's still made up of 2 monthly charges based on an equivalent residential unit. That's outlined in the city's ordinance. Each customer pays both an O&M charge, which is the operating and maintenance charge. That's related to costs associated with treating and disposing of effluent. And then the capital charge, which is to pay for capital projects at facilities. And so you see the existing rates are about $40 a month, a little over $40 a month. The first year, the O&M charge goes up to $54, so about a $12 increase, and the capital charge goes up to just under $16, so about a little over $7 increase. And as we'll see on the next slide, where we show kind of what that 5-year bill looks like for a typical residential customer. You see the biggest increases in that first year, and that's a function of a number of things. One, as I mentioned, the rates haven't changed for 20 years, and so you have to kind of catch up as best you can on 20 years worth of costs going up while rates remain the same. Also, as I showed on that slide, the cash balance is in trouble. Without any immediate action, the cash balance is going to deteriorate and be gone by the third year. And most importantly, we're not meeting the debt service covenant requirement. So that's why the main jump is in that first year. And then you see the increases are about $10 to $12 over the next 4 years. So that once we've gotten caught up, then the increases become much less. So here is a comparison showing where Ione sits currently in comparison with its neighbors, and where it will sit after assuming the city moves forward to adopt the new rates. So you see all the way on the left, the lowest rates out of all the comparisons, and then it will jump up just about to the middle, not quite to the middle, but still about $13 less than the average of the comparisons that we looked at. So less than the average, but it does jump up above Valley Springs, San Jose, and Modesto. And then finally, just to revisit those adjusted financial metrics. These are the same measures that we looked at when we looked at the status quo or do nothing scenario. So you see in each of the years, the revenues and expenditures look much better. The revenues are enough to cover expenditures. The net result is positive and stays about the same amount of positive. It goes up slightly over the 5 years. We're able to maintain the amount of cash that is outlined in the policies, the 180 days of cash in reserve, and then the debt service coverage requirement is met. And the policy goal really is to get to 1.5. The minimum is 1.1. 1.5 is just a stronger measure of financial health. So in the event that the city looks to borrow money for some of these capital needs that come up in the next 5 years, that stronger indicator of financial health will be looked at favorably by lending agencies, banks, and State Water Resources Control Board, whoever the lender might be. So that's what the financial metrics look like after the recommended adjustments. So finally, just a recap of where we've been, and the next steps. So on April 15th, we presented the initial study results and you had the opportunity to address some questions, and we had some comments and feedback on that evening. And then you set the Prop 218 public hearing date for this evening and authorized us to mail public hearing notices out, informing residents and customers about the hearing. Those went out on May 1st. And so we're here tonight to have the public hearing. So following my presentation, there'll be an opportunity for folks to present their questions and comments. Following that, the council have the time to discuss and consider. Once the public comment portion of the public hearing is concluded, then the written protests will be tabulated. There were 3,431 notices sent out. Of those, that represented 2,441 properties. Some of those notices were also to customers who weren't necessarily property owners. So in order to have a majority protest, you have to have a 50% plus one of that 2,441, or 1,220, 22. Notices returned. If there's a note or a protest return, if there's a protest returned by both a tenant and a property owner for one property, then only one of those counts. That's spelled out specifically in Prop 218. There's one protest per property. So as long as we have fewer than 1,222 protests returned, the city council will then have the discretion to move forward with adopting rates. You're not obligated to. However, if there is a majority protest, you are obligated to stop. You can't override that protest. And so that concludes my presentation, and I'm obviously here for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, bear with me. I haven't done a public hearing in a while. So do we open up the public hearing now?
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
I got a quick question.
Questions from council.
Questions from council members first before.
Okay, how many protests were returned? How many protests were returned?
Madam Clerk, do you have an initial announcement?
We had 58 protests.
Thank you.
Are there council questions?
None from me.
Okay, we'll open up the public hearing.
I just want to make a comment. I didn't get to see it. In the top one of 5 years, you're not taking a 213, it's a 135, I think, in 5 years, so it'll be a month. They put up 3 things. And the other thing I'd like to ask the man about is this include the tertiary plant, which we ain't hooked up to.
I'm not sure. That might need staff to fix that.
Where'd George go?
Anyway, we're not hooked up to the tertiary plant.
Will be about 2 weeks.
It does not include any upgrades to the tertiary plant other than the interconnect project, and that was added specifically because that was a high priority that helps us with our issues that we're having at the sewer ponds. So it only include, you can, in the capital improvement plan, which you can find in here, you can see exactly what the projects are, and only the interconnect even touches the tertiary.
Yeah, because they can't pump ours there unless they add on to it. And the other thing, they borrowed 101 million point two since 15, and we'll never get that back to run the tertiary plant. And I'd like people to know that to keep their golf course green, it cost us other people $1.2 million in 15 years. Just like you to know that. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Amy Hez. I've lived in Ione since 92, raised my family here. I've never been to one of your meetings. But I got a little fired up about the sewer bill increases. I went through the letter and I felt it was a little bit disingenuous on spelling out the actual increases. And on a side note, I feel like in order to do a protest, the steps you had to take were not really reasonable for somebody. It was pretty specific with a letter that had to be hand delivered, mailed, had to have all kinds of things, your APN number on it, had to be obviously 2,200 different homes had to be done. I actually thought about doing a grassroots effort to go door to door and collect these and let people understand the true cost of what we're looking at on this expense here. But that is just an undertaking I personally wasn't able to do. What I did do though, is I kind of went through it, and the issue I had with what was on the letter, and I understand his slideshow did cover some of it, but I kind of went through and I did it on a more of an annual look back. Now, I am not opposed to a rate hike. I understand that we have been paying this amount for quite a while and that we need an increase. I get that. I'm not opposed to that. But when you go from paying annually $488.40 to $1,417.56 annually. That is 190% increase in 5 years. And that I kind of have a problem with. I think that increase is quite frankly astronomical. And the first year is really the highest increase, because when you do look at over, the first year is almost a 72% increase. And then every subsequent year after that runs right about 15%. So a couple of things that I had looked at is I went on to the Ione budget. First of all, I called the assessor's office and I found out how many houses do we even have here in Ione. And the assessor's office told me there's about 2,508 homes. I went on to the Ione's city budget for fiscal year 24-25 and looked, and the Ione budget listed it roughly a little smaller of an amount than the assessor's office did of 2282. So I took the money and I multiplied it from the current rate times the 2282 to see roughly what the city of Ione is bringing in from the sewer rates currently right now. And that came in at a little over $1.1 million. But by the time you've gone through all 5 years for that, when you times that 2282 homes times the 1417.56 a month, now the city of Ione is bringing in $3,234,871 in sewer fees from the residents. So then I went back and I looked at your budget and I looked at what your total operating budget was for that same fiscal year. And your total operating budget for the whole fiscal year is just shy of $8 million. I understand that in 5 years, your operating budget is going to go up. But when the sewer bill fees that you're expecting us all to pay are now hitting 40% of the revenues that are your total budget for the city of Ione, it has to make me kind of take pause. I think it should make everybody take pause.
You got a minute.
What this is all about. I also found that in the letter, there was a few spaces where it talks about capital projects. I don't know what capital projects you're talking about. I'd like to know if there's a reason why we have to do all these millions of dollars worth of projects in the next 5 years. That's fine, that's dandy, but what happens at the 5-year mark? Are we still paying this astronomically high rate? Are you going to lower it back down? Or I would just assume we're going to continue to pay it, correct? But there's stuff in this letter that indicates that it's just going to be, we promise not to spend it on anything but sewer. I just don't know that this is the right climate to be telling taxpayers that you promise not to spend their taxpaying dollars in a way that it isn't earmarked for, when clearly that's not what we're seeing in our everyday lives with our current government as the ones we live in. So that's all I have to say. I just think that you're going to have a lot of very unhappy people on a fixed income when the medium income price for the city of Ione, according to your own budget, is floating $75,000 a year, and you're expecting people to pay $1,500 a year in sewer bills alone.
Time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
When I got the letter, I didn't read it. I just looked at the diagram, and the prices. I have 5 pieces of property. And so now they're just telling me that if the protest has to be written and you had to have it in by today. And there's other people here that didn't send, they've got pieces of property and they haven't, they didn't send protests in either. So I'm not real happy about it.
Mayor, if I may.
Can you speak on that, Council?
That any resident here can file a protest form before this close of this hearing. It's very simple information to provide on the form. So if you have a blank piece of paper, we could even, at some point in this hearing, take a pause. If we could grab some blank pieces of paper, if anyone wants to file additional protests, you can do so. And I could give you the information to write on it if you'd still like to file those. So that the opportunity is not over until the end of this hearing.
Can I speak on that real quick?
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
Well, give it to the mayor.
Did you need to speak on that? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, your time's starting now.
Okay, thank you. So on that point, there's some conflicting information in the notice that was sent in this page right here. It says for protests may be mailed or hand delivered to the city clerk prior to 4 PM on today. And then the next sentence, it says, or sorry, 2 sentences later, it says protests submitted, or excuse me, the next sentence, it says to be counted, a signed written protest must be received by the city clerk prior or before the conclusion of the public hearing. Well, those are 2 different times. So that's very conflicting information. Secondly, the California Constitution says that you guys have to provide a ballot, which was not provided as part of this 218 notice. So we had to create a letter, which in my opinion disenfranchised many of the proposed protests that could have come through. So that opens up potential doors for this whole process to be negated later on. So, and that's under California Constitution, Article 13D, Section 4, Paragraph D, right here. It says that you have to provide a ballot as part of this process, which was not included. So I wish you luck.
Thank you.
My name is Fred Lair. I have a property in Ione. My dad built it and we've been there for 70 years. So I have some standing, I think. I'm not here all the time. I'm only up here about 50% of my time. I have a small house with 1 bathroom. I flush the toilet about 5 times a day. I don't flush it every time I use it because the water agency has beat into me the importance of conserving water. And so I try to comply. This is a regressive tax fee in the worst kind of way, in that it punishes the people who can least afford to pay it. And I'll be able to pay a bill if it's $120 a month. But it's going to hurt me because I'm an old guy now. I have Social Security and I don't have a pension. I live on what I've saved. And I planned okay, but not too well. At any rate, I find it kind of unbelievable that we are all lumped together in a $40 a month fee. As Ms. LaFane said about the water agency, you know, $40 a month, it's been that way for a long time. And it has obviously worked up until now. It hasn't become an emergency, but all of a sudden now it is. And the fees are going to go up 72% next week. And that's a lot. Seems like a lot to me. It's going to go up 190% by the time the last increase kicks in. That's an awful lot of money, and I'm not sure where it's going to go. The Proposition 218, I'm not familiar with it because our state legislature inundates us with law so often and so much that you'd have to be a lawyer and have nothing else to do but keep abreast of it. But it probably has something to do with the way that this was done with the 51% protest. Now I got it and I got my letter in, but I'm pretty sure it should have been done with a ballot. We should be voting for this. If it's 51, takes 51% protest to shut it down, that must mean that it takes 51% approval to get this passed. Only that's not the way it's been presented to us. It's been presented to us backwards. And I think that's an underhanded way to do it, really. Whether it's legal or not doesn't necessarily make it right. We should be voting on this. And particularly, you know, I got this.
You got 1 minute.
Thank you. And I can't read it because much of it is illegible. It's unreadable, but I can get the gist of it. And the gentleman that spoke a few minutes ago talked about equity. One of the things in the rate study methodology talked about equity, and it looked up there on the screen like we're going to get what we pay for rather than everybody paying a blanket fee. Some people are going to get a real good deal and some people are going to get screwed. And unfortunately, we didn't have a chance to vote on this. And I really do think we should have. Debt service, he mentioned debt service. Now that's a part that I don't understand too much, but I assume that debt service is interest on a loan. And the debt service, as it is now, is $145,000 a month. And in the proposal, it's going to be $810,000 a month for debt service. And that is a 558% increase. And I'm wondering where all that extra debt is going to come from and where it's going to go.
Your time is up, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, sure. Sure.
Take my time. You need to finish.
He was looking forward to the end.
I don't know. I'm kind of running out of gas, to tell you the truth. But it appears that the regressive nature of this fee, there's three kinds of fees. There's a regressive fee and a progressive fee and a proportional fee. And the regressive fee hurts the little guy the worst. And the progressive fee hurts the rich people the worst. And neither one of them is fair, but a proportional fee is fair. And somebody should be doing a study instead of putting a bunch of numbers together that nobody can understand. Well, somebody can. Somebody put it together. We should have a study to find out how we can assess a sewer bill fairly based on need and usage rather than a blanket fee for everybody. And if it was going to remain at $40 a month or go up 20% or 30% in order to cover increases in debt service and whatever, you would think that there's some methodology that could be implemented to determine how this could be fairly passed on across the board. For me to pay $120 a month, which is what this will be in 2029. And then to have someone else with a 3-bedroom house and 4 kids that flushes their toilet 45 times a day, pay the same fee, means it's costing me a lot more to flush my toilet than it's costing them to flush theirs. And I don't like to have to look at it that way. Say, well, you use it more, you should pay more, but it kind of should. And the most heinous part of this, I think, is that it's not putting this out in a more straightforward way of having us decide how this is going to go, because this is something that we should be deciding as a group. And I'd also like to know where, if any of this money is going to work its way into the general fund. I didn't see anything in there about reserves, other than that we are required by law to have certain reserves. And I'm wondering if we have more reserves than we need, which by increasing the revenue by 200%, there's going to be reserves and big ones. And where's all that money going to go? Is that going to go into the general fund? Because I don't think it should. I think that our sewer rates should go to sewer. At any rate, I'm losing it. So it's what I have to say. I hope that we can.
Right, thank you. Any other public comment?
Do I have any time left? So real quick for me, I think he sort of hit on it, is you could do the sewer. I mean, it's going to take a little more work for this gentleman here, but you could do it by number of bathrooms or number of bedrooms in a house. If he has a 1-bed, 1-bath, he probably shouldn't pay the same rate as somebody that has 2 or 3 bathrooms in their house. So you could probably make the rate more commensurate with the home you're actually using, because
for him to pay that kind of rate if he's only there half the time, and it just doesn't seem fair. And I think the ballot thing makes a lot more sense. Let the people vote it, and if it's 51%, do it. But to say absence of a ballot, if you don't complain over 51%, doesn't seem very democratic to me. It's, if you don't fill something out, you're screwed. So my 2 cents.
Hi, my name is Joseph Speck, and listening to everything that's been said today, I do have a few questions. Right now, we're looking at the 5-year forecast that triples our sewer rates. And I don't know of any other industry that can do an accurate 5-year forecast. Right now, even the state of California is looking at cutting back on payroll, on the different projects that they've locked in. And yet we're looking at locking in this increase when, in all likelihood, in all reality, prices are probably going to go down. The economy will do whatever the economy will do. And I don't think we're going to get rebates. I don't think we're going to get any of this money back. I think it's going to get locked in, and it's just going to be what it is. I don't think anybody here disagrees that we need to increase the rates. But I think that everybody disagrees that locking in a 5-year plan is not what we need to do. If we lock in the 2-year rate, look at it again, see where the economy is, see where everything's at, that makes far more sense to me. I know personally, if I have expenditures, I have to go ahead and work within my means. I have not heard any presentation here today say anything about that, or the fact that they're looking at doing everything that they can with what they have. Those are just 2 points that I have that I don't see anybody addressing. And like I said, my main point, locking in a 5-year plan, I just don't agree with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Epperson, resident homeowner in Ione, ran the budget for a number of years. People don't always understand that part of that budget runs management and legal stuff that goes to the wastewater agency. Part of that usually is around 20 to 40%, depending on the year. We were able to keep the rates low for as long as we did because we had a lot of rates payers joining and paying in every year. So every year we'd have a couple hundred rates, so the money would go up accordingly. The other part of this is I believe this is a ceiling, not a floor. I think you can kind of vote in whatever raise you want up to what you've been approved to do. I do believe that it's tripling the rate is probably onerous. I just running the budget and being there for so long. I mean, stuff goes up, but it kept pace with the ratepayers the entire time. We borrowed somewhere around $750 million. I think it was a 1.8% interest loan, which is probably the debt service. I think it was a really good deal, by the way. We saved a lot of money. It probably cost a couple times that right now. But my encouragement to the council would be, as a citizen, is that you don't have to approve the entire thing. You can improve. I may have actually voted to do the study. I'm not for sure, but we know the rates needed to go up. I just don't think they need to go up triple. I think probably $20 a year for the next couple of years, and then figure out after that. I mean, that would be my humble recommendation, running the budget for a number of years. So that's my comments. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate your hard work. No, it's super fun up there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Larry Caputo, 707 Shakely Lane. Relative to the previous gentleman, the previous before Dan, about a 5-year plan, I've run big organizations for many, many years, and we always tried to do 5-year plans. And I can honestly tell you that when we did a 5-year plan, this is the way it went. We could look at the next year and be 90% accurate. We look at the second year and be 50% accurate if you're lucky. And beyond that, it was like trying to predict the clouds. You cannot predict what's going to happen in 5 years. Go back 5 years and ask me if you could predict what happened in the last 5 years to get us here today, and you can't do it. So a 5-year plan is good as long as it's tempered with the fact that there's a lot of flexibility in the last 3 years. The other thing I'd like to, just one comment about somebody talked about reserves. We have lots of reserves. I've seen our P&L. We have lots of reserves. Reserves are no good if they're not funded. And our reserves and funding have a lot to be desired. So you can put anything you want in reserve, but if you don't fund those reserves, then it's blue sky. You don't have any money. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I didn't think I was going to get up and speak. My name's Mary Ann Johnson, and I've been in Ione for about 6 years. Love it here. This is where I wanted to retire. Retire means I'm on a fixed income. So every time rates increase, property taxes go up, insurance goes up, water bill's going to go up again. And most of my water bill isn't for the water. It's for the debt service and everything. So this is huge. It means I have less disposable income. It means less money that I can spend in Ione, supporting Ione. I don't have a money tree. A lot of people don't. And I just wish you would look at it. Yes, we need a rate increase. 5 years out at that rate. It's just because everything else is going to go up too. And that just really crunches and makes things harder, more difficult for people like me that are on fixed incomes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? We got anyone on Zoom, Chief?
No.
No? All right. We'll close public comment.
If you want to, if the engineering consultant wanted to respond to anything, or we could respond to any questions from the public. I had a couple notes as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, come back up on the podium, please.
Yeah, I took notes as well. And so I'll respond to the questions that I've written down. And I think one is going to be the same probably response as yours. The question about the tertiary plant improvements, whether or not they were included, I think we already addressed that, only the cross connect, not improvements to the tertiary plant themselves. There was a question about, were there other, the information in the notice didn't talk about was this looked at any other different ways. And so I wanted to, and I should have mentioned this during the presentation, we did spend, the reason we worked on this for almost a year is we did spend time with George and with the rest of the staff looking at different ways, particularly with the capital plan. The capital project plan is the biggest piece of this. It's the biggest dollar amount. It has the most financial impact on the utilities operations. It requires the most money. And so we looked at a number of different scenarios, even a couple where the increases would have been higher than this, because the capital plan that's in here, some of the projects were left out because of the impact that it was going to have on rates. And certainly sensitivity to the impact on customers, and particularly fixed income customers is something that we always talk with city staff about. And that's one of the reasons that we looked at different scenarios and different ways of addressing the capital plan, and ended up on one that was less than really every project. Some of the projects were taken out and eliminated. There was also a question by that same person that another person had about money being spent outside of the sewer utility being spent or used in the general fund in some way. That's not allowed under Proposition 218. It's very specific that money generated by rates, sewer rates, water rates, whatever they are, trash rates, can only be used for those enterprise purposes. So that's the reason cities establish utilities as an enterprise fund in their accounting. The money that goes into there has to stay in there. It can't be used legally for any other purpose. So there's other reserves can't be used for other reserves or to fund other projects. And then there were several comments about the protest process and whether this should be a ballot. So again, Prop 218 is very specific about the process. And one of the folks mentioned Section 4. Section 4 applies to assessments, not to utility rates. Section 6 under Prop 13, which is Article 13, is what addresses, and you can clarify if I missed that anywhere, but and they're very different. They're treated very differently, specifically because when Prop 218 was passed back in 96, it looked at sewer, water, and solid waste services as a public safety need. And so that's why it was not included in the Constitution requiring a ballot. So it's not an arbitrary process. It's not a process the city developed or we developed. It's very specifically laid out in Prop 218 about how the process is going. And so there was no requirement to provide a ballot or have a ballot returned. Again, that's a different part of the Constitution on assessments, where there are ballots and ballots are returned and tabulated, and the outcome based on the return of those ballots. There were several comments about a 5-year plan. They're not incorrect, right? Any forecast is inaccurate a minute after you make it. I mean, a forecast is, by definition, a guess. You're trying to use the best information possible, and we gathered a lot of information from the city, a lot of historical information, to try and using the capital plan and the operating budget, the capital budget, all of these things to as best as possible plan for the next 5 years. And one of the residents had a question, do the rates have to go up the whole amount? That is at the council's discretion. He was correct in stating that this is a ceiling, not a floor. So you have the option to approve anything up to the amount that's laid out in the notice. You can authorize less than that if you want. You can also come back in any given year, say after 2 years, you determine that you don't need capital project X, whatever that capital project X might be. And so you don't need that $3 million. You could authorize less than that year's authorized increase. So, the increases are laid out in that notice for each of the 5 years. And if any one given year you didn't want to authorize that full amount, you could authorize less than that full amount, even if you don't do that tonight. So I think that addresses the notes that I had. City Attorney, if you want to expand or correct anything I said about Prop
No,
18.
so similar notes, only that these funds are restricted for sewer purposes by law. Had a note on the progressive or regressive rate structure under the same restrictions. Each customer has to be charged equally, so that's also a restriction under law. And for this procedure, just how it's designed, no ballot is required to be provided, but if in the future, in another 5 years or 10 years, if a rate increase happens, I think it's a good note for us to have, and we can certainly provide a form or a ballot for the next proceeding. But there is an opportunity to file protest before the end of this hearing, and we can take a moment if there are more forms to be submitted.
Okay. So I guess we'll start questions with council.
I have a few questions. First of all, I agree the notice is archaic. Public hearing notices, nobody sees them. We just had one a couple of months ago, nobody knew about it. And it was an AWA hearing. I do agree that a ballot should have went out. It gets more notification. It's better outreach. I think the city could have prepared people a little more for this. But my biggest question is, where did these capital improvement projects come from? Because I'm looking at several of them, and I'm pretty sure we've already paid for them. So there's that issue. SCADA upgrade, sand filter rehabilitation, et cetera, et cetera. We've expended millions of dollars in the last 9 months at the tertiary plant. So I'd like to know what CIP projects are in your evaluation. And then I lost my train of thought on the other one. Gosh darn it, I had it all written down and not went away. I don't agree with everybody paying the same rate. I agree with the gentleman there. I lost my train of thought. I'd like to see what capital improvement projects are duplicates. Oh, now I remember what it was because Mitzi triggered my brain. How do we know these capital improvement projects are going to be completed within this 5-year time frame? We are going to be talking about West Marlette here shortly. That project appears every 4 years as a priority up on SB1, and there's a deadline set, but the deadline is never met for that project to even start. So what guarantee do we have that these projects will be completed in those 5 years? Those are my concerns, that we're going to pass a rate on to the taxpayers with no guarantee that we're going to use the money as we're saying we are. And I don't agree with that high. It's not this people's fault that we failed to raise the rates. It's the city's fault. So we have the power to set the rate that blends better with the public. And that's the way I'm leaning, but I would like more clarification on these capital improvement projects. I'm not sure where you got them, but they all look very familiar to me. That's all I have.
Councilmember Mitchell, anything?
Well, to go along with the no one disagrees, we need a rate increase. I hate to be the one to disagree. I don't think we need a rate increase. I assume we do to a certain degree based on 20 years of not raising it. And I certainly understand costs have gone up and that shouldn't surprise anyone. What does surprise me is bringing this forward and not going after CDCR, who promised the city as part of their mitigation, a sewer treatment plant that was never built. And I had said from day one when I came in that I would not be voting on increases on sewer until you took on and got conversations with CDCR to discuss what mitigations. Do I expect them to build a sewage treatment plant? No. But I don't know that they've been approached to even address the issues that they have created, including the one in Henderson Reservoir with contamination. I'm not going to lay down all of their mistakes on the ratepayers while we just ignore the fact that they owe this city some mitigation from back when they opened originally. I know we borrowed some serious funds from the city sewer over to the tertiary treatment plant. Have done so recently in emergency situations to upgrade the tertiary treatment plant, which I get, but that again shouldn't sit on the heads of the ratepayer or the constituents of this city. The letters back, what's it, 82? Is that what you said? How many letters do we get back? No, but how many do we get back? 60 tells me that we got a shitty ballot. Because I can tell you there's a lot more than 60 whatever out there that are against this. Hanging it on these folks that are sitting in this room and the ratepayers out there in the city as a whole, not going to happen on my vote.
Councilmember Atling, anything?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the council for bringing this to where we are today. This, as Allison said, has been kicked down the road for 20 years. If the last time the rates went up, I think it was 2004, 2005, there was a CPI or a accelerator in there, like 3 or 4% in there, so that it would go up like $1 or whatever every year. And then you'd be it. We'd already would have been paying this over the years. The rates do need to go up. This is probably the biggest deal in Ione since I've been on the council for 10 years. So, I mean, this is a huge deal. You're getting your rates raised from $488 to $840 in the first year, which is a huge raise and kind of hard on people. I mean, whether you're on fixed income or not, I mean, that's a lot of money. That's, $500, $400. We've been lucky that we've had the sewer rate subsidized by new growth in Ione, Castle Oaks, Wildflower, some of the other places like Dove Lane. So with all that new building, all those new impact fees, that has kept the rates down. So Ione got lucky with building, the rates are artificially low. So keep that in mind. Yes, there are concerns about we're going to pay this money and is it going to be going for sewer or is it going to be going for like whatever, somebody's pet project or some other fund. Well, these are restricted funds, so they can only be spent on what they're collected for, which is a good thing. Now, that doesn't mean that the city can't go in there and start doing interfund borrowing, which is a whole nother thing. But on the whole, it is assigned to where it's going, and you should be fairly satisfied that that is the case. And there's council members that keep an eye on that thing. It's hard to do by fixtures, if you've one guy with one toilet, or 4 guys with 4 toilets, the size of your home, I believe you got to do it on the, as the attorney just said, the law says it's one sewer connection, so you got to pay it. So that does seem unfair. But also unfair is I don't use a whole lot of water washing my hair, but I still got to pay the same as everybody else. So that's just one of the things that it is. What I'd like to see is, and also it's too bad that we get this, 2 weeks before the rates are going to go up, right? Because we probably should have had a conversation like this 6 weeks ago and then gone back and brainstormed like, okay, how can we make this a little bit better? How can we address these needs, so on and so forth. But what I would like to see is, I've written down some notes here. I might as well throw it out there now. But I'd like to see the first increase go up $20 instead of 30. So I've got it going up 60, 85, 100, 115. And then probably at year 4 there, we should look at it again. I mean, it doesn't have to be 5, but that we could build something in on year 3 or year 4 where we look at it again. I mean, I believe the rates need to go up. I mean, they have been artificially held down. They're super low. They're still the lowest in Amador County. So if you want to really get some sticker shock, go live in Sutter Creek. So it's an unpleasant thing. I do appreciate the council, even though we may disagree on what we're eventually going to vote on. This is a tough thing to bring before everybody because you're the bad guy. You're going to put the rates up. And that's unfortunate, but they do need to go up. I'd like to see a modification of those increases. I threw out some numbers, but that's for the experts to decide. But we're also, running out of time. We only have 2 weeks. So those are my comments.
Vice Mayor Mayor. Well, we knew we were gonna have to finish this at some point. I'm also a ratepayer and I truly believe in protecting ratepayers. 20 years has been extremely fiscally irresponsible, so that's why we're here today. The new growth that we expanded in the city over the last 10 years particularly, we've lived off that growth. I've seen the graphs where our revenues were so high. And then I saw that we were almost built out on subdivisions. And what were we going to depend on when these subdivisions no longer were there? We weren't going to be able to depend on them anymore. It's just not there. We do need it. We do need an increase. Do I want to do one? No. I've known for a long time. I think most of us that have lived here, if we're honest with ourselves, we will think to ourselves, damn, we've been paying $40.70 for sewer in this city for 20 years without even looking at it. And we've had a growth probably double the size of the city in the last 20. Now I sympathize, trust me, I'm retired also. I sympathize with people on fixed incomes. I totally do. I understand. I don't want to make it too tough on anybody. It's a very difficult decision for all of us up here, and I know we all feel it. But we've had to put this off because there has not been any increases. I like the fact that we can revisit this in 2 years. I'm glad it's been conveyed that money is for the sewer plant only. I see since the 7 months I've been on this council, how much money we've had to invest in that sewer plant just to get it up and operational like we need to finally get ourselves in a situation to where we can operate the tertiary water to actually water the plant, the golf course. This takes money. So my proposal would be, I believe we should keep the rates for the first 3 years and look at it after 3 years. I think within 3 years, I'd like to say go 5 years. I don't think we're going to get that with this council. And I understand the reasoning for that, but I would like to get something done tonight. And I think that's a reasonable proposition, is to do 3 years. And we'll absorb the first hit the first year, and then we can look at it again then. So that's my take.
Thank you.
Hey, if I could make a comment?
Yes.
Just for each year, it's a 5-year rate schedule that you're adopting. but it's a maximum rate that you can adopt each year. So each year, the council will be implementing a specific rate each year. You could do it up to the maximum, but this action tonight, you're not binding yourself to any specific rate for future years. All you're doing is saying this is the maximum rate that we can adopt in that year. And you're also adopting, by this action, you're adopting the rate for the next fiscal year. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Can you bring that slide back up, Chief, that had that,
The 5-year.
the 5-year? Because I don't think some of the audience even got to see it. And it's not very legible in this thing. I'm kind of on the fence. I'm with one thing we're all kind of agreeing on here. And Jack has brought up a huge point. That prison owes us millions of dollars in a plant that's been held up in court twice that they owe us for a plant. So I do believe we need an increase. It is kind of, we're an emergency. It's been neglected for so long. It's been, 20 years of councils avoiding this topic, and I'm glad it came to a head. So I think we're all in agreement to bump it up a little bit, but I don't believe the 5-year number is, I think, too high. So what was your, Dominic, you had kind of a sketch down there, would you?
We could go from, like I'm saying, the first year, $60, which is a $20 increase instead of a $30 increase. And then the next year, what is it?
That's all you, for tonight, that's.
So
all you-
basically, we're not adopting a 5-year plan. So every year we have to come back and adopt the next
Every year you implement what you're charging the next year, but what you're,
as a separate thing.
right.
Okay.
This study is the maximum, you're adopting the study, it's the maximum rate you can charge each year.
But so we're going to have to come every year. Do we have to have 218 every year?
No, no, this is the 218 process. You set the rate for the upcoming year.
So all we got to decide on tonight is what we're going to charge
For year,
next
for year one.
I say $60. And the rest doesn't matter because we're going to talk about it next year. So
I'm good with that.
are we done with discussion or
What are you paying now, 480 a year?
488? So 60 a year would be,
To 720?
yeah.
That's too much.
Trying a number.
Someone want to make a motion?
See,
In order to get something done tonight, considering that this is a cap, the max, I'm willing to tonight, agree with Dominic on the $20 and, we can revisit this, but, we need to get something done. And, I think most people in the audience, hopefully you would think that would be okay.
I'm gonna say $12.
Someone want to make a motion?
We're just splitting it in half. Sort of.
Before we do motions, I would
Got to
give
get
the
more than
public
12.
one opportunity for anyone to file.
Anyone file their extra protest?
I would recommend taking a 5-minute recess for us to get a few minutes just to get some pieces of paper and.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess and you guys can fill out a protest paper if you'd like to.
There's
Okay. Back from recess, we'll continue.
Yes. Only, at this point, I would ask Madam Clerk to announce the final tally of the votes received.
I'm tallying them right now.
Well, that'll be a 5-minute reset. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Ooh, tough.
You're in trouble now.
58 plus 24. 82.
82.
1,222.
Oh, it's close.
Okay, now does someone want to make a motion?
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that the rates go up by $19.30, which takes it from what it is now to $60 even for the first year. And it would have gone up that much had the city put in a 2% over the last 20 years. It would have been pretty close to that. So I'm making that motion, $60 for the first year, and we adopt the rate study.
I'll second that emotion. I'll second that motion.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 No.
No,
Ayes have it.
make another motion, but
It's too fast.
All right.
Oh, declare the result, yeah.
Okay, so we're moving on to the next item.
Thank you for your input tonight, everybody.
Leave my place. Okay, hold on. We're going to our regular agenda item. If there's some of you that want to leave, we got 3 other items. If you're here for sewer, next one coming up is updates on Regional Water Board and Title 22 report with Michelle. Is Michelle on Zoom and ready?
Yes,
You there, Michelle?
yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, so my name is Michelle Chester. I'm with Somax Simmons and Dunn, and I serve as special counsel to the City of Ione on wastewater matters. I'm following up on my presentation at the last City Council meeting on Tuesday, June 3rd, regarding operation of the tertiary facility. As I last reported, I worked with ARSA and Sutter Creek representatives to contact executive officers in the state and regional water boards, requesting that the city's tertiary facility be allowed to operate while the State Water Board Division of Drinking Water continued its review of the city's Title 22 report. As a reminder, that Title 22 report is a requirement for discharge of tertiary treated water for reuse on the city's golf course. We did receive a response from the State Water Board Executive Officer within hours of sending that letter, that joint letter. That was just after completion of the City Council meeting that evening. The response was that operations of the tertiary facility should resume while review of the Title 22 report is pending. The request for operations to resume was based specifically on concerns over the capacity in ARSA's system if they could not discharge to Ione during this irrigation season. So I am glad that we have a productive working relationship with ARSA and Sutter Creek, and that we were able to work together on getting that information before the executive officers. The next morning, we also received a response from the Regional Water Board, which confirmed that they were continuing to coordinate specifically with the staff in the State Water Board's Division of Drinking Water, and that they expected that staff to provide a letter of conditional approval for operation of the tertiary facility just the next day or so on Thursday, June 5th. And we did end up receiving that letter of conditional approval from the Division of Drinking Water on June 5th, stating that they conditionally approved of operation of the tertiary facility while continuing their review of Ione's Title 22 report. We then also received a letter from the regional board confirming their acknowledgement of the Division of Drinking Water's decision, and that the regional board would allow for discharge of recycled water from the tertiary facility to the golf course during the 2025 irrigation season, which runs approximately through November. I understand that notice went out publicly on about June 6th, as well, confirming those agency approvals. Since that process, I have some information about the water levels in ARSA's storage system. I don't have more recent information from ION's facility operators about the capacity to drain storage before the wet season, but I understand that Justin and his team would have more direct connections to ARSA and Sutter Creek operators, of course, and more information about current capacity of the tertiary facility. And he is, I believe, planning to make a presentation before the city council today as well. So if there are any questions to that effect, I would defer to him, but certainly I can work with him to follow up and pass along any updates about system capacity. I also understand there is some concern about the relationship of ION's Title 22 application and a potential request for use of ION's recycled water at the U.S. mine site. Now, I received email correspondence directly from the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board Assistant Executive Officer on that issue. And he confirmed that his staff is updating the waste discharge requirements, or the WDRs, for the U.S. mine site currently, which is a review process that all regulated dischargers undergo in a 5-year cycle. Now, a draft of the WDRs for U.S. Mine was released recently, and there were public comments on a portion of that draft that noted that U.S. Mine could potentially take recycled water in the future from the city of Ione only after all related permitting requirements were met. And those requirements include endorsement by the city of Ione, as well as a revised or new Title 22 report to be submitted by the city of Ione that specifically identifies the use of recycled water at that U.S. mine site, in addition to any permit issued from the Regional Water Board once an updated Title 22 report was approved. Now, that whole process would also undergo public review and allow for public comment, and none of that has occurred to date. The Title 22 report that was submitted by Ione in May of this year did not identify the U.S. mine site as a place of use for recycled water, and unless and until Ione submits a revised Title 22 report, there is no permit allowing use of Ione's recycled water that can be sent to the U.S. mine site at this time. Now, from my understanding, based in part on the correspondence I received from the regional board, there is no existing agreement between the city of Ione and U.S. Mine for discharge and use of Ione's recycled water, and any such agreement would need to come before the city council for approval. And as expressly stated again by the regional board staff, they included mention of the use of Ione's recycled water as a possible source at U.S. mine site, simply in recognition of the potential future water disposal option, not as an approval. So I received the email from the regional board executive officer specifically because he recognized, based on public comments, that inclusion of language in the draft WDRs, this draft permit, caused confusion, and he is aware of my role as legal counsel to the city. And based on his letter, my understanding is that the inclusion of that language in the WDRs was acknowledgement of the broader ongoing conversation of the water balance in the Mule Creek watershed related to discussions of alternative discharge locations, but certainly not an approval nor a mandate for Ione to discharge to U.S. Mine. As for timing of the review of the WDRs related to timing of submission of Ione's Title 22 report, there is no relation. Again, the Title 22 report submitted by Ione this year doesn't request approval to discharge to U.S. Mine, and the request is necessary to obtain approval from the State Water Board's Division of Drinking Water, in addition to an updated permit reflecting the same information from the Regional Water Board. Now, those options are not eliminated, and they could be consideration for Ione if that's desired in the future. But like I've said, those ION approvals, the regulatory approvals have not been obtained to date, and they would be required for that option. I do appreciate that the regional board was responsive to public comments, as well as looping me into their response to provide clarity. And I do understand that as city officials or as members of the public, you may have working relationship with regional board staff members. Moving forward, it's my recommendation that outreach on behalf of ION be coordinated through the city manager or myself to maintain that cooperative working relationship with the board, provide them with a known point of contact, and perhaps also help with consistency with reporting to the public. But ultimately, I do want to ensure that ION has a productive working relationship with our regulatory agencies so you can obtain the approvals you need, and find solutions when needed. So I am available if that's still a point of concern. Lastly, I did want to just clear up some confusion about why a point of contact at the regional board recently left his position. I understand there was some concern that maybe a regional board staff member left because of potential conflicts of interest related to involvement on the Mule Creek watershed. Again, this is based on correspondence directly from the assistant executive director within the regional board. But their understanding is that that employee left for no other reason other than opportunity for career growth. Now, that is a lot of progress in the last couple of weeks, so please do let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions from council?
I have no questions, Michelle. Thank you you've been doing a very good job, and I appreciate it very much. And I think you'll help clarify a lot tonight.
I disagree with trying to censure the public. I feel they should be able to reach out to their water board agencies whenever they feel like it.
To clarify, I have no intention of obscuring transparency. There are certainly public comment periods for these permits for the same reasons. I offer that service specifically to the city council, and I did confuse the issue.
Any other council questions?
No, thank you, Michelle.
All right, thank you, Michelle. We'll open up, if you have anything, George?
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll open it up to public comment. Any public comment on this?
Dan Epperson, ARSA board member. I just want to thank you, city staff, Michelle, you got everybody working together. It's been really good. The only comment I would make would be, I want to be out of place, but like anytime that the city is doing upgrades or changes on a tertiary plant, I know on past conversations, the ARSA really appreciates being in the loop, just letting them know what costs are there. I mean, there's opportunities there as well. Yeah, we're excited. We believe, looking at the levels in Henderson especially, we think that we'll be out of water, at least have enough water out of the system to be able to do the dam repairs somewhere between July 1st and mid-July if it gets hot like it can. We believe we have just enough time, we think, to do the necessary repairs. We really do appreciate all the hard work you guys have done to get this back on track. So with that, we'll keep you posted. I feel like we're in a good era of cooperation, and I just want to thank everyone for chipping in and trying to make this thing go. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any other public comment? Mr. Scully.
Last couple of decades, numerous contracts with numerous regional water employees. And their mindset is that once the corrections water gets to the ARSA facility, it becomes ARSA water. And that is hard and fast in their thinking. So when I read in the paper, we're going to take ARSA water, and I hear here we're going to take ARSA water, are we taking ARSA water, or are we taking a combination of water from the prison and ARSA? Because those are two very different things. Could somebody clarify that for me here tonight?
So if I may.
ARSA water only, no corrections?
Do you want to answer that, Michelle?
Yes, so the conditional approval provided by the regional board and the state water board does not differentiate from the source of
I
water.
hate to be rude, it's a yes or no question.
Then I apologize. Can you repeat the question?
Is it going to be solely ARSA water, or will it be mixed in with corrections water also? Yes or no?
I don't have the answer to that. It depends on specific operations of the tertiary facility, which I don't manage day to day, but Justin may be available to answer your question.
Just ARSA, Jim? Huh? Just ARSA. Just ARSA, okay. I have CDCR piped off. Actually, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I actually relieved. I see a lot of activity over at your tertiary plant, and we're talking about Henderson being very high. Okay, years ago, the way they brought that down is they ran it through the tertiary plant and put it on that 14 acres just west of your tertiary plant. Is that some kind of a plan again gonna happen? Is that something along those lines? Because after they did that, 2 weeks later, water started trickling down the banks of Sutter Creek, where it never trickled before. So if that's kind of in the plans for bringing down Henderson, we might want to look at something else, or just run it right into the creek. You know, it's not a problem. But either way, can I answer any questions?
Nope,
Thank
did
you.
good. Thank you. Any other public comment? Anyone? Nope, we'll close public comment. Okay, with that,
Have a good night, Michelle.
Thank you.
very much, Michelle. All right, moving on to item 2, update on water treatment plant with Justin.
So I have my usual just update, but then I'm going to segue into this right here with some new developments I found out yesterday. And I'm kind of still picking up on things as this night's been going. We had US Mine folks here, and I introduced myself when they were leaving. And I was hoping to kind of talk about this in front of them with everybody here, but you know, we had a longer meeting than usual. So I'll just get to this part of it. Good evening, my name is Justin. I manage wastewater treatment facilities. I'm here to provide a brief update on operations since we started receiving ARSA about 11 days ago. In the past 11 days since we started the tertiary system for water treatment, we've sent nearly 10 million gallons of water to the golf course. We're gradually increasing that volume. Just last night, we delivered 978,000 gallons, and with recent adjustments, we expect to reach 1 million gallons by tomorrow. Normally, in preparation to receive water from ARSA, we spend about 3 days discharging stagnant and odorous water from the line into the pond plants. So that's why if you guys have been driving by and you guys smelt it in the beginning, it was pretty smelly. It's just because of these circumstances we're in right now, right? Getting water to that golf course. As of today, operations return to normal, and we'll see another increase in delivery volumes to the golf course starting tomorrow. I'd like to take a moment to congratulate the City of Ione on a significant milestone. The Regional Water Board has granted temporary approval of the Title 22 request. This is a major step forward. While the recent situation was undeniably difficult and uncertain, it pushed us to quickly adapt and work together. One of the positive outcomes is a temporary interconnect system we now have in place with permanent plans already in development. Also worth noting, the well we relied on during the emergency has fully replenished since we stopped using it 11 days ago. Now stands as a reliable backup water source for any future needs, which is a great improvement to our system. So I pulled this up right here, and I might be confused about what's been happening. I hear, obviously, Michelle's referring to stuff on Facebook, and I hear about people calling the regional board. I guess I can kind of give you guys an idea of my plans for your water treatment facility in these capital improvement projects. And so away from the microphone, I'll go up here and kind of point at this.
Justin, grab that one there.
You get a headset?
This ain't LA.
Kidding me. I'll reach. Good thing I got. No, I
Looks like a rock star.
I want to point. So here we have the pond 7 right in the back. Thank you. Yeah, John, you know exactly what I'm talking about when you're city manager. So we have the pond plant in the back. Below it is the well and the pump. Yep, right in this area. And so my plans for your capital improvement projects, the big master plan is to not only take well water but now use that interconnect line that we have temporarily above ground and have Pond 7 go into that as well and have a pumping station in the back. So now we can either send well water or we're sending Pond 7 water throughout the winter months, right? So in the winter months, we get these lined with our capital improvement project. And in the winter months, we fill up, one of the ponds. And if it's a big winter, 20-year storm, whatever it's called, 100-year storm, we use both of them. We have one as backup. This year, we only used 3/4 of Pond 7, and Pond 6 stayed totally dry per the request of the regional board, not using it anymore with creek concerns. And so, like I was saying, with that, we'll be able to send both resources to our tertiary treatment plant. And now, the next thing I'd like to do is connect into our old Woodward bottom line. That runs down the road. And what I want to do is tee it off this direction to be able to get water kind of in a circle. What this will do for us in the future is provide the ability to send the water along our city line over to Howard Park and eventually become self-reliant on Ione, using our own water, spending our tax dollars on ourselves. Instead of paying, $15,000 a month on irrigating the Howard Park in the summer months, now we're using our own tertiary treated water. These are some of the things I threw out to Michelle when we were doing the Title 22. I said, hey, let's throw Howard Park on there. Let's throw Woodward Bottom under there. And, her response, and she can jump on there and attest, was, we just want to focus on getting the tertiary up and going and get water to the golf course, which I agreed. We don't even have a line going to Howard Park yet. There's no lines except for to the golf course. So it's just something I wanted to throw under the Title, to have options under the Title 22, which would super benefit us in the future, right? When we start doing these capital improvement projects. Now it's already put in place. This summer, we're going to irrigate ourselves. So now hearing these things in the past 2 days that have developed with US Mine Talks, I'm going to point to it. Yeah, it fits down here. And they want to let us use them. And we have capacity problems, everybody. We can get fined on them. We're only supposed to take 500,000 gallons under that a day. If we didn't still have percolation ponds, I'd be stuck with 9 million gallons of water for the summer months with nowhere to go because there's no piping anywhere else. I'm not supposed to be percolating anymore. They've given us a cease and desist order on that. So I'm going to be lining these ponds. Water's got to go somewhere. They put us under their Title 22, which is amazing. That gives us options. Now we can team up with this big old company in town. Let's saying, hey, use our pits over here and we'll take your water. Problem solved, everybody. Like now we don't have to spend $2 million on a pipeline up to Howard Park. And we don't have to keep bothering the Miwoks about Woodward Bottom, which, they're not very interested in, I guess. I've thrown out a proposal to them. So, he left. I tried to ask him to stay, but obviously it would have been another hour and a half. I gave him my card. That's a great option. So if we're under their Title 22, that's big news for us. It's going to really help benefit us on all future expansions. Any questions about that? Here.
Yeah, I got a question about that. 6 weeks ago, you said that was impossible. The U.S. Mine would never, ever enter into any agreement with the city of Ione. And now you're saying they're going to take the water. That's good news.
I said it.
Well, you didn't say it. Stacy said it.
Oh.
But you were in the room.
You
So
tried
now
to
they're,
let domain the property.
I hear we're on the Title 22. No, I
that's
hear.
great. That's great news.
Yeah, I hear we're on their Title 22. That gives us tons of options
Yeah.
now.
They've removed
Thank you.
us from their Title 22.
No, they haven't.
According to JJ Baum at the regional,
Why would they remove us if they just did it?
you might want to call them.
Oh, come on.
They-
They're fine, Ione.
Yep, that's what happened. They are going to revoke it now.
There was no approval for the city. City gave no approval.
We're going to try and get it back, but they did revoke it.
We're going to try to get it back?
Saw no agreement
Yeah, why did they revoke it?
because there was no written discussion anywhere about putting the city of Ione on.
Because council members were calling the water board and
I didn't
complaining.
Water board.
But it's like I said with Howard Park. We don't have a line going to Howard Park. We just throw Howard Park under the Title 22. They're throwing us under their Title 22. Why would we complain about that? That's free money. That's free anything. That's options for us.
Why don't you just run the whole city?
Who complained about that? Well, I'm running the whole water treatment facility and this is ridiculous. Somebody complained about that. That's what I'm running. So who did it? Like, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help this town and give you options, trying to save money. You brought up earlier, I'm spending millions. I spent $1 million, Allison, spent $1 million last year.
Member LaFane.
And we're saving money now with the CIP project. So it's, I mean, I don't get it. Any other questions for me? Okay.
Great job, Justin. Well, enough, yeah.
Any public comment on this?
This whole meeting, what's that up?
Yeah, I'd like to mention you two people messed up again. Thank you. And the other thing is there's a south line over there already in, so you already got a right of way. You could run the pipe to the gosh darn Howard Park. It's already there. You just got to put the pipe in. And it's crazy. You guys wouldn't help us. You know, you keep putting down US Mine, you especially. Keep putting it down every time. These people could have come into this town. Perk could have come to this town. Pure Base, you ever heard of that one? It's
No.
another company. They might have moved to this town and you two guys screwed it up and you would have got all the sales tax. Thank you.
I just want to know how come the Title 22 was pulled? Can somebody answer that?
I have an email from the, well, it didn't come to me directly, but I have an email.
You can call the water board or email them.
To find out. Okay.
Or call US Mines tomorrow.
Mitzi, get with me after the meeting or later and I'll let me know what you're looking to have done, okay?
I guess I'm showing my age, but Janice, maybe you can remember when a man named Tom Schoen was mayor, his main project was to build something called the South Valley Trunk Line. And if we could get that information to Mr. Graneros, I think that'll bring down the cost of that idea a great deal, because that is a good idea. Let's use our own wastewater and, but I think a lot of that work has already been done. And again, I'm just getting flashes here and there. I'm sure you got a better handle on it.
Yes, I do have information on that. South Valley Trunk.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim. Any other public comment?
No.
You got anyone on Zoom, chief? Nope. We'll close public comment. All right. We'll move on to item 3, adoption of resolution number 2025-16 Senate Bill SB1 road maintenance project for FY 2025, 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Every year, we have to bring this resolution back for approval. As you see in the background, this bill was approved by the governor in 2017. This bill provides new revenues for road maintenance projects within the city. According to the state's most recent projections for fiscal year 2024-25, the city is projected to receive approximately $239,000 in revenues. Regulations contained within SB1 require that projects funded with SB1 monies need to specifically provide a list of streets where the money will be spent as approved by the city. Once approved, paperwork must be submitted to the state for approval by July the 1st. So you have on subsequent pages some of the monies that we have generated over the years. It also states 2 projects that were completed recently, and you have projects that have been submitted in prior years that are now being carried over. So you can give me direction in terms of what streets to put as priorities in getting done. Some of the streets, I know West Marlette has been a big issue in the past. It does need a lot of work. The only problem is that's a big expense. To do all the work on West Marlette would take $1 to $2 million or even more. So I think that's why the previous city administration did not attempt to do those. So, however, if you guys give a direction, that we can probably allocate funds and try to save funds for that use.
Any council questions, comments?
We approved this resolution last year on June 18th. And we had West Marlette at the top of the game then with the projected completion in the fiscal year 24-25. So now we're here again. And I see you anticipate West Marlette. The project is anticipated to be constructed in year 2025, 2026 fiscal year. So that starts next month. What steps are we putting in place to get, I know you just said it's $2 million. We seem to find money for everything else.
Those projects have been carried over. So
That's what it means, carried over.
so
But
if
this
you want
one
to
was
place,
supposed to be done last year.
right, well, it didn't have the money. So there wasn't enough money. If you want to do the entire street of West Marlette, you would have to have, you know, a lot more money than what was allocated. What was allocated was 239,000. So that would maybe cover the engineering costs and so forth. So if you make it a priority, give me direction to really start that process, we can do that.
That
And-
seems to be the biggest complaint that I hear is West Marlette.
Okay, well, you have some of the other ones that were also carried over, so that's up to the council to decide what is the priority. But if you decide West Marlette Street is the one, then we will, the staff will move forward with that in terms of developing all the plans and instituting engineerings to get that done. But obviously, we will not get it done this year.
Oh.
Maybe the plans or some of the engineering work might get done, but the construction's not gonna start.
Can you point out on here where it says 2 million?
Well, that's just from my experience. Yeah, West Marlette has,
This is outlined, this is barely 500,000.
well, I think West Marlette, from my understanding, has a lot of sewer issues as well that you would have to also replace.
Well, that would come under wastewater.
George, I had the engineer walking today, actually, per your request. They worked on Andrea's house, so we went and walked the whole street and they looked at everything, including sewer.
Can you come to the podium, Justin, so people on Zoom can hear you?
What engineer did we have walk?
Your question, Councilmember LaFane, was what engineer? What engineer, Mayo Construction, they're working to fix the lot next to Andrea's house. The head engineer of that company walked the entire street, we went driving spot to spot. We discussed, they're all in one. They do both sewer line repairs and road paving. San Joaquin County, they were recommended to me through an engineer of San Joaquin County. They do tons of projects. They actually did all of the roads leading into town. And then where everything got bad is where Caltrans took over and they started paving over everything. So they actually have already worked on Ione's roads in the past. So they're a company that has proof, have work around here, and we went and walked it today per George's request.
So that particular company was doing work on the lot next door of Miss Bonham's house, primarily because the last sewer backup, her house flooded, and that was the city of Ione's fault. So that sewer backup flooded into the neighbor's yard, and so we are required to remediate that spill. So,
They projected 2 million?
excuse me?
They projected 2 million for West
I
Marlette?
don't believe they projected 2 million. That's just my estimate from my experience.
Because what we're given here, and they break it out, Buena Vista, Sacramento, Violet to Manor. They break the street out in sections. 9,700, 189,000, 25,000. Something's better than nothing.
No, again, it's up to the council to determine which of these items that you'd like to do.
My opinion is obviously we have to, if you look at the sewer studies that have been done as far as our sewer mains, we have a lot of problems underground, and we can't just do a half-ass, so to speak, project on West Marlette. We're gonna have to do it and do it right. Definitely my number one priority is West Marlette. It's been overlooked for a long time. We get our most complaints there. It's the most dangerous. Needs to be, that needs to be taken care of. So that's my main priority. So if we have to put the money towards that and keep working to get this project completed, and as long as we inform people of West Marlette, they are number one. That's about best we can do in my mind.
Councilmember Ratland, you got any?
I have no preference on what streets get done, whatever city decides, good by me.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Marlette seems to be the big one, but it's also the financial concern of the sewage or the sewer infrastructure underneath is definitely also an issue. So you have to have, obviously, the studies done, and it could be a lot more than what we think. But they certainly are on the top of the list.
Yeah, I agree. We've talked about this for years. Not only West Marlette, the road itself, the sewer, and that's the sewer main trunk line to the sewer plant. And you can use SB1 funds for anything under the road, so you can actually fix the pipes with that. Problem is, you're probably right, George, you might even be a little shy now of $2 million because you take that all under consideration. How much do we have totally in the pot? Because I know we've rolled it over for probably, I've been on council 6 years now, and I think we rolled it over every time, I think, except for once.
I think we're about 500.
Yeah, that'd probably just about pay the engineering fee to figure out, yeah, so.
So if
I'm beginning, but I agree with West Marlette, and let's roll. But maybe Debbie at some point can look into a grant, maybe we can tie the money together with something to.
Sure.
Because that's gonna fail one day, that whole road's gonna drop,
They have it on,
so.
Amador Transit has it on their sheet.
I'd like just to mention one thing one more time, and as that is, I do believe it's a priority that we allow people that live on West Marlette. I'm not saying put out a notice or anything, but just in conversation and as far as us, as people that were part of the city, that we reinforce the fact that we are aware of their plight, and this is not just talk.
So you can approve the adoption of this resolution,
Yeah.
making West Marlette a priority.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve. Can I have yours? Just throw mine away.
Resolution is.
Right there. Oh, yeah, they've got to take public comment anyway. Sorry.
They do.
Do we have public comment? Okay.
Name public comment?
Or public comment? Sorry, I was writing something. Any public comment? Hey, you got a church down there.
I do. A church and a house and another house. West Marlette, my only, just, I want to thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Just that one section between, the Latter-day Saints and on past the Gold's Place there at Violet Lane, that needs to be ground down. And I fixed it once, but I got yelled at a lot. I'll fix it again, but I hope you guys will do it for us. That'd be great. I appreciate it.
I know what you're talking about.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, guys.
All right, any other public comment? Anyone on Zoom, chief?
No.
Nope. All right,
Now
close public, okay, I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2025-16 of the City Council of City of Ione adopting a list of projects for fiscal year 2025-26 funded by the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017 SB1, and that we make West Marlette a priority.
Second.
Do I have first and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, ayes have it. All right, moving on to reports and communications from the city attorney.
Thanks for participation during Proposition 218. Important, if everyone wants to submit a vote, they get to submit a vote. So glad we did that.
All right. Reports from city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Things continue to progress in the city. The Public Works Department is doing an extremely good job in terms of coordinating some fire abatement issues at Howard Park. I think a lot of the public can see all the work that they're doing. So next time you see a Public Works member, please say hello. I'd like to devote some of my time here tonight for Andrea Bonham so she can give you a pretty good update on all of the things happening in the accounting department in terms of audits and all of the different things that she's addressing at the time. So Andrea, if you can come up and give your accounting update. Start with interest first.
4 minutes.
Okay, I have to start with interest first. So this year, this month, our interest was 45,477, which is very similar. It pops down, goes up, usually between 40 and 45. So we're still on our, basically, it's a nice little pattern. So basically, I've been interim finance manager now since April 1st, so 2.5 months. And so George had asked me to come to you and tell you what's been happening in those 2 months. Some of it you're not going to like hearing. So the first 2 weeks was basically just trying to get access. We have the issue of everybody leaving and the turnover. So we're still logging in on old names and there's authentications now that happen for every single program and they go to personal cell phones. So just getting into programs was difficult. So we did and put the new finance and AP emails in. And then I just recently asked for a cell phone and was approved. So now all those authentications will go to a finance cell phone. So when someone leaves, the authentication is on that phone. It's not their personal phone. Right now, everybody has to use their personal phone to authenticate to get into every program. So when someone leaves, you can't change the password because it goes to them. So we still had stuff going to Jody, and then we would try to get a hold of Jody to change it. So fortunately, that's all now going to be tightened up. And the good news is what happened is we had an employee leave and it was actually a fairly smooth transition because we had already moved emails to AP as to a personal email. So we were able to just continue rolling without having a big stop like we have in the past. You guys are probably aware when someone would leave, it would stop, we'd get 6 months behind. So we did a good job on that one. Paperwork and filing, there was a lot of paperwork and filing that wasn't done. There was probably 3 stacks that were 4 inches tall of just miscellaneous stuff. There was about 8 overdue reports that were due. One of them was a PERS reporting that hadn't been done to over 2 years on retirement. You had state compensation report, NCCISF, identity fraud, there was a lot of overdue stuff that had been from the end of the year, like December, so it was due January, February, and hadn't been done. Auditor requests, so Jane's the lead on the auditor requests. I usually pull the data, whatever they need that she doesn't have access to. I also talked to the Richardson's partner, Ryan Nash, and we're hoping to hear from him on the 23rd was the date he gave me. So next week, we should hear from him to try to finish up these 2021 audit so we can start the 21-22 with Larry Bain and moving forward. The room up front has been cleaned and finished and painted, so now we're moving the building up there so we can get a place set up for the auditors where they can just sit and spread out all their documents and work. We had all the insurance also come up for renewal in March. So we literally had to go through all the vehicles. I think they've just been rolling over for the last couple of years and nobody's been double checking which vehicles were actually on the list. So Debbie Mackey, Kenny Mackey, Zach Finch, and the chief, everybody got together and put on the vehicles that should be on and those taken off that they don't need. Started processing and documenting basically all the processes because there was no information on basically what's due, when it's due, what's coming up. We have a large job of cleanup of coding for payables. So currently right now, the coding for the payables is being done as the budget was funded. This is going to be one of the items I brought up last time. So to give you an example, what would happen is if, say, they were going to do chemicals in the budget, it would be a breakdown 50% into tertiary and 50% into wastewater. When a bill would come in, they would code them as 50% each. It's like, well, that can't happen if it's something that's just for tertiary. It has to go to tertiary. And if it's just for wastewater, it has to go to wastewater. You can't just break it up because that's how you budgeted it. So right now, Jane and I have been working on starting in July. We haven't looked in the previous year, that'll come through the audits, but at least cleaning up 24, 25 and getting the coding. So it's quite a time consuming job of the stuff we're finding, but at least this year should be much cleaner. The other thing, there was a donation research back in last month. There was a request by Dominic regarding fiscal year 24-25 and the donations that we received that I gave. You sent me an email regarding the $30,000. Yeah, so that I brought the donation information. We've started the 25-26 budget. We've done, Jane did the personnel budgeting part of it. We've met with all the department heads, and now I'm pulling together all the O&M and the capital part of it. This Friday, we have training with Cassell for the budget module, which we've never used. This will allow every department head to go in and look at their budget so they can see their budget all the time. It will also, there's the ability to where even council members can log in and see the budget in real time. We had several payroll issues. We have people who have not received their step increases. They got their anniversary came up, but and we got the PAFs, but then it never happened in payroll. So we've had a lot of back retro pay we've had to do. We've also had dues that weren't being deducted. We had incomplete paperwork and missing paperwork. So Jordan and I actually went through the personnel files and actually created digital and hard copy, just until everything's right, of the files so we can find out who needs what and get them all updated. We had several employees who never set up their 457 plans. They have to do that. The city can't do that for them, but we require it because anything that's left over from their cafeteria plan that they don't spend on medical gets rolled over to that plan. So we have to hold on to it until they set up their 457 plan. So we have everybody but one now. And there is some clarification. We're going to need all our balances of leave, vacation, and payroll. We're having to audit back from July 1st because they're not correct. And there is some clarification that'll, in the future months, will probably come back on the employee handbook just to tighten up the language and how things are calculated. Because you have things like, admin leave. Well, you get it. It's like, well, do you have to be here 6 months? Or because everybody gets, everything resets the first year, same as floating holidays. But if I start on December 25th, I get it come January. So little things like that need to be addressed. We're working on the 25-26 tax roll, which is for delinquent sewer. We always send a tax roll. And it comes to you guys before August 10th to be put on tax roll. The one thing that I really don't want to be here to tell you about is the 23-24 tax roll we discovered was never received by the county. So there's an $85,000 tax roll. We have all the documentation. It went to council. It's been approved. I have all the documentation and the county has no receipt of it. So I called and spoke to Karen at the county. I said, what happens now? And she says, well, it's up to the city if they want to put it on this year's tax roll.
I thought Dan had just let that slip. Dan, you will write that off, right?
So where it becomes a bigger issue is when you do tax roll, the credit goes to the account as if they made that payment right when the tax roll goes. So all those accounts have been credited already as if they made a payment. So that's something we've been working on, which is kind of a bigger puzzle. Ongoing, we have cleanup bank reconciliations. We're 4 months behind. Jane did them through November and then they were to be picked up. They weren't. So now we just finished March. So the grant cleanup has been, Debbie's been working, the most two that we've been working on recently are the train park. Come to find out there's been no submittals for reimbursement over the last 3 years. We've submitted $0 for reimbursement on that grant. So we're going back and tracing everything that we've spent. So the good news is there's $177,000 we get to collect now because we've been spending the money, but every year you should be putting in your reimbursement for whatever you spent for that year. Let's see, miscellaneous. Oh, I discovered that we had hired 2 companies to do the Gatsby 75 report, which is the report is for your PERS retirees. And they're each like $2,500. And it's like, but to do the 21, 22 and 22, 23. So when I discovered that there was 2 of them, we were able to contact the most recent one and said, don't do anything, and they didn't charge us. So that was good. We had a savings there. I also found out we've been paying for iWorks for Public Works. It was put on a couple years ago, but Public Works has never used it. So we've called to, and they don't plan on using it. So I've contacted iWorks to ask, they have a bill that was supposed to be on this one, but we're waiting to hear back from them to see if we can get it prorated on the invoice because it takes a 60-day notice. And then we have just our daily payroll, payables, wastewater support, front desk support, and then other oddball things like the amphitheater. So that's kind of in a nutshell, what's been going in finance. Budget study. Yeah, so the budget, we have training on Friday, and we have set the July 3rd and July 17th. Those dates had changed from the last time I saw you. One, we had the employee leave, and two, so that'll go 7, or the 3rd will be the workshop. The 17th will be the workshop, and then I've asked for a special meeting on the last Tuesday in July, because we have an extra Tuesday for tax roll, because it has to be in by April. Year and budget adjustment. Oh, that's the one thing I didn't tell you. There were several items in payroll, and as you've mentioned in the capital, you guys had never approved a capital budget for last year, and you've been one-offing, approving the capital improvements without a budget, but getting approval for each of those. So there was initially going to be a mid-year budget adjustment in January. That didn't happen. So now that all has to happen at year end. So that year end budget adjustment would also be on that same meeting. And it's probably going to be fairly substantial. The other thing that I discovered that we've got fixed now, so that's good news, is on one of the reports that you received, the expenditures to budget, I think you received it in February, and you had noticed that the sewer was off by a couple months. Well, if you looked at that report, the budgeted amount, if you got to the end, didn't match your 24-25 budget. So I had to go through every line item and get Cassell's budget to match our approved budget. So now we can print out a report that actually is good data. So that one's been completed. So yes, we're finding lots of little stuff that needs to be cleaned. And I think a lot of it has to do with just so many different, yeah.
You are the 11th person that the audit's been?
I'm the 11th contact for the auditor. I'm the 6th person that Jane is training. And I think I'm the 4th or 5th for Wildan. Yeah, it's just, and also, I've said this before, and the city managers, every city manager comes in and changes, and you kind of take 6 months to get going, and then if they leave, then you take 6 months to get going. I do have information on the Castle Oaks revenues and expenses. I just finished them as we were coming here, because unfortunately our is changed as far as now payroll falls on this week. So I've been stuck in payroll all day. So I'll just pass these on. Basically, this is just the documents that came from Castle Oaks. Yeah. So these are the documents that came from Castle Oaks. I just included them so you can see them. And it's the summary. So basically, if you look at the clubhouse revenues they start on May 1st and they go through the beginning of June. And they're showing they have revenue of 68,000. And then the golf course at 207, and then expenses at 81. So a difference of 195. And these are their reports that are attached to it. The other thing, let's see. And I know let me go back to the one when I came back regarding the donations. There was a question, because Dominic, when you had sent that to me, the rumor of a missing donation. And so I had asked for more information that we could research to, like, who you think it's from or what the amount is or something, because right now I have nothing to do further research because I'm not sure what. I don't even know a direction to look for.
Sorry.
So previously, when you had asked about the donations, I had asked for more information, if you had any other more information, like who we thought it was from, because I could contact them. So right now I have nothing to take that further because I don't have any other data of where to even look or who to ask.
Okay.
Because it's just kind of a vague, there's a missing donation, but I don't know, do they think it's from IBCA? Do they think it's Rotary?
I think you cleared it up last time we spoke, so it was good.
Good, because I never heard from anybody, so, all right, well then that's good.
Thanks.
And see if I got anybody else. I think that, yep, that's about covers it. There's a bunch of little stuff, but I don't want to, I know I've already probably talked.
All right, thank you, Andrew.
Very well.
That right there is a very research detailed report, transparent as it gets. And we thank you for that, Andrea. We know how hard you're working at this and it shows.
Thank you, Andrea. She has been working extra hard in terms of getting all the aspects of the accounting organized because of some of the dilapidated systems. There's been a lot of misinformation, from one system to another. So I think everything's almost caught up. I think she's very, very focused on trying to get the audit, expedited. That's one of the reasons why she prepared that room so the auditors can come here and they're going to try to finish out 1 or 2 or 3 years. I think how many years?
Right, 2.
2 years in one shot. So again, we are trying to catch up as fast as we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
This document is public knowledge, so I would like to just give this to Elmer, whoever the hell wants it, to go take copies of it and give it out to whoever so they can see. So you don't have to go through the rigmarole getting through the way. You got any? Okay. With that said, let's move on to council comments, committee reports, and future agenda items. We'll start with Councilmember Allen.
I'll just be real quick. We heard a couple of times tonight about US Mine and how 2 council members have voted against it. Well, US Mine's never come before us, so that's impossible. I've never voted against US Mine. I've never even seen US Mine until tonight. We had a discussion a couple of weeks ago about doing what Justin said we're going to do now. We were told absolutely no way, and now there's a way. My thing all the time is transparency. If it's a good idea to go there, then let's go there. Same with the water agency. He keeps changing the numbers. It's 90,000 gallons a day one day, 250 the next day, and now it's 7,500 the next day. I mean, I know there's people out there that like checking figures. And so it's like, well, what is it? The easements never come before us. We found out about it as tacked on to a sports field project. So if they want to do something like an easement through the city, they need to come to the city and tell us about it so we can all decide what we're going to do. And if it's a good idea, we'll do it. And if it's not a good idea, we won't do it. So just want to let you know that I've never voted against US Mine. It's never even come here. So that's all I have for tonight.
Councilmember LaFane.
Well, you can't deny there are 2 very large projects going on that support water to US Mine. Transparency, yeah, let's talk about it. US Mine has a big project. They have discharge applications. They have 60-acre ponds that they're installing over there to hold water. And this water that is going to go to them is going to assist them in their new projects. The project spells all of this out. And so does the easement, the study that E-Corp Engineering did when E-Corp Engineering went out to Howard Park and did their study for the easement. So to say there's nothing going on is there's something going on. And I'm of the mindset, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's get it here in front of us and let's talk about it. And the city of Ione is going to benefit in some way because that's a lot of water and it's not just going out there to sit. And I would just like some transparency. And enough of these cover-up meetings where everybody comes in and says, that really didn't happen and this happened. Let's just put it out on the table. Because there are other letters that haven't surfaced yet. So let's just get some transparency.
Councilmember Mitchell.
So your sewer rates haven't gone up yet. There's the car show, but it does include a chili cook-off. Just saying. So if You have to see the connection there, George. I'll explain it to you later. I see you're sleeping. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks for your patience. Thanks.
Vice
Be
Mayor
at the show.
Maida.
You know, I came in tonight, and I'm trying so hard not to say something negative when it comes to, when people speak of transparency. Yes, I'm talking of you. Yes, yes, ma'am. Of course I am. Because
Don't violate the policy.
do you want to be transparent about whether or not you had an alias?
What?
Are you, will you say yes or no that? Okay, we'll talk about that later then. Okay, anyway, I want to thank the Public Works for everything they've done. There was a lot of rumors about what was being done behind backs and stuff, and obviously it was to the benefit of the city. So I want to thank everybody for that. The city of Ione has got a lot of outstanding employees, and it's late. Everybody needs to go home. Thank you.
All right, just got a couple items, real quick. The creek is getting cleaned down again, as most of you can see. One thing I would like to bring up is a lot of this false information about US Mines has actually cost a multi-million-dollar publicly traded company that was going to literally rent this next building and rebuild it and move to town. They turned it down because of how businesses get treated by this council. So that needs to be noted. With that said, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Second.
On favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Good night.
Us.
Couldn't wait.